Welcome to XYPN Radio, where your host Alan Moore brings you into a community of fee-only financial planners who want to profitably and successfully serve Gen X and Gen Y clients. If you're ready to get the knowledge you need from leaders in your field, learn from forward-thinking advisors, and take action on your own goals, XYPN Radio is the show for you. Here's your host.
Hello and welcome to this episode of XYPN Radio. I'm your host, Alan Moore, and today it's my pleasure to bring you an interview with Adele Martin, the founder of Experience Wealth, a fee-only financial planning firm in Australia. I met Adele at the XYPN 16 conference and had some really fascinating conversations with her about how they operate in Australia versus how we operate here in the US. She started her firm to serve young clients in their 20s, 30s, and 40s and works on a monthly retainer basis with no assets under management. So while she is doing something similar to how XYPN promotes, Australia has some very different laws from the US, many of which I wish they would bring here. In 2008, Australia actually banned the commissions on all investment products and is looking to ban commissions on all insurance products here in the next year or two. But even now, all of their insurance products can be sold without a commission, which reduces premiums by up to 30% a year. Despite being ahead of the US in terms of consumer protections, though, her firm is groundbreaking in Australia because it's owned by a young woman, works with young clients, uses a monthly retainer fee model. Sounds a lot like XYPN here in the US, huh? It was awesome to hear how she is growing her firm, serving clients, and really disrupting the status quo in Australia. As always, you can find any of the resources that we mentioned during the episode at xyplanningnetwork.com/74. In addition to the typical resources, you'll find a link to our recently launched book, co-authored by Kitsis and myself, titled The Monthly Retainer Model, What It Is, Why It Works, and How to Implement It in Your Firm. Folio Dynamics is leading the evolution of the wealth management business with technology and advisory solutions that empower every advisor. Folio Dynamics just launched the concept of Fiborg, which covers those advisors who embrace technology automation the same way the cyborgs of science fiction did. That Fiborg concept means that advisors can automate those activities that don't generate revenue while maximizing the time they spend with clients. For more on Fiborg, on working with millennials, and on Folio Dynamics, visit foliodynamics.com/thought_leadership. Also be sure to go to xyplanningnetwork.com/VIP to join our private group just for XYPN Radio listeners. You can interact with other listeners, ask us questions, and more. All right, here's my interview with Adele. Hey Adele, welcome to the show. Thanks so much for being on.
Thanks for having me.
I should have Google mapped the distance from where you are in Australia to where I'm sitting in Nashville because you are most certainly the most famous guest that we have ever had on the show, as well as the furthest distance we have had on the show. So it is very early morning there and late afternoon here. So I appreciate you being willing to try to make this work for us.
Well, thanks for having me. No, I think it's a 14-hour plane trip, something like that.
Oh, is that all? Just 14 hours? No big deal.
Yeah.
I have never flown further than East Coast to West Coast, which is probably about 4.5 hours is probably the longest flight I've ever done. So I imagine, I don't think I could sit for that long. I don't know how you do it.
Lots of movies, 4 movies, glass of champagne. That'll get you through.
Plenty of whiskey ginger ales. That is my plain drink of choice, sadly. But anyway, so I am super excited to have you on. So we met face to face at XYPN 16 when you and quite a few of your counterparts from Australia came up. So I'm excited because y'all, honestly, you're ahead of the curve, or much, much further ahead than the US on a lot of things. And so I'm excited to hear just a little bit more about how y'all do business and some of the situations you deal with versus how we're dealing with stuff, and kind of see, I guess, what we can learn from each other. So kicking things off, I remember you told me one time that you've been a financial planner forever. So have you always been a planner? Do y'all have degree programs in planning in college there?
Yeah, so when I first started, I was 19. I was still at university doing a Bachelor of Commerce, and I knew I didn't want to be an accountant after doing the degree. And so I wanted to get a job. I just thought I'd get some sort of admin experience. So when I was finishing my degree, I got a job as a personal assistant for a financial advisor, and I could hear the distinction between accounting and financial planning. Financial planning was more, looking at the future. It was more people and money rather than just about money. So I sort of fell into it by accident. Now there definitely is. When I started, there was no degree qualification when I started. And so, but there was like one little subject at university. So yeah, there is now full degrees in financial planning, and they're actually about to make it compulsory to have your CFP here. So, or something equivalent. That's sort of on the cards at the moment. So they have certainly raised the education standard since I started in 2001. So for me though, I was always, education was exceptionally important to me. So I made sure I've got my CFP. So to have your CFP here, you need to have a degree and you need to have your advanced diploma of financial planning, and you need to have so many years of experience. So yeah, they're looking at making that compulsory at the moment.
Wow, there's so many good things in there. Who will make it compulsory to have the CFP?
The government. The government is making it compulsory.
All right, we're going to dig into the government because y'all are so far ahead of the U.S. on this stuff, and that's just a shining light of it. So you got your degree in, you said commerce. Would that be equivalent to accounting or CPA work in the U.S.? Okay, so that was your degree. So you started working for a financial planning firm while you were still in school?
I did. I worked for one of the banks here. So I worked for them. And yeah, so I was doing like just administration stuff, answering the phone, processing applications. Mm-hmm. And then we had, so that was when I sort of first started, but I could hear the conversations. I didn't even know what financial planning was when I started. I thought it was something to do with retirement. And at that time it was about retirement. Right. So yeah, that was 2001.
So then once you graduated, what was kind of your first job? Did you stay there and just sort of move up, or did you find a different place to work?
No, they offered me a job full-time when I finished, but I would go straight into financial planning. I was 21 and I didn't think that I, should just dive straight into financial planning. So I actually wanted to make sure I had some technical background before I started. So I didn't take that job and I actually became a paraplanner. So do you have paraplanning in the United States?
Well, we call associate advisors paraplanners sometimes, sort of entry-level data gathering input into the financial plan type role.
Yeah, that's right. So I did that for a couple of years where I was, doing the projections, gathering the data, putting the strategy together with a financial advisor, putting it in writing. So I did that for a couple of years and I became a financial advisor in 2005.
So that's when you kind of met the experience requirement then to use the CFP?
Well, no, back then, so CFP is not compulsory yet. Back then when I started, it was very low entry to be a financial advisor. You could pretty much do an online multiple choice test and you could be an advisor. So it was extremely low barrier to entry, and that's why they had, some of the problems we've had, recently. In Australia, they're looking at having a royal commission into financial advice because some of the things that advisors have done. And so for that reason, they've actually about to set the education bar much, much higher. So it's not, so at the moment you have to have 4 subjects and you have to have someone, sort of sponsor you, but they have definitely made the test a lot harder than what it used to be, and they're about to make it, even a greater bar. They want you to do a professional year, and they're talking about making advisors do an annual test every year as well as having to have a CFP. So they're definitely ramping it up.
Good gracious. Our requirements are basically what you're talking about with that entry-level exam. It's the Series 65 here, but that's all that's actually legally required.
Yeah, right.
Is that you just pass a test that's more about regulations and not getting sued than actual competency when it comes to financial planning.
Right.
So we are decades away, I think, from having the CFP even considered compulsory or having anything compulsory, much less, it sounds like it's coming around the corner quickly for you. So that first job with a financial advisor, were you working, y'all's structure is a little different. So were you working is still attached to a bank? Like how, it was an independent advisory firm? I guess how does that structure look for the way that you were operating?
Yeah, so back then how we were operating was under a bank. So basically back then I worked for a bank and you would have to recommend the bank product.
Okay.
And so, but now an independent financial advice firm, so we have a much, broader range that we can use. So I guess for us, in Australia, you can either be, have a financial planning business and own the clients, and that be under a license. So that license could be a bank or it could be, through another dealer group. We call them dealer groups. Mm-hmm. Or you could have your own license. And when you have your own license, you go straight to ASIC, which is our regulator. So you either have a license through ASIC through somebody else, you use their license, and that could be a bank or it could be another independent, or you go straight to ASIC yourself and have your own license.
Okay. So that is equivalent for us of like going to a broker dealer and kind of being under their model, which then goes to the regulator, or you go independent where you work directly with a regulator.
Correct. Yep.
So I guess was that your only job in financial planning before you ended up becoming an advisor with your own practice, or did you have a couple of jobs, I guess, over your career?
No, I had pretty much the one job. So I was a paraplanner. I was a financial advisor at the bank for nearly 2 years. And then I went straight into another business where I ended up buying into that business. So I bought into that business in 2008. And that was a retiree practice. So we deal with people that, just about to hit retirement or at retirement. And so I bought into that business just before the GFC, which was a great time to buy into a financial planning business just before GFC hit. And so, that really forced us, the GFC really forced us to look at our models because we were a percentage-based model. So we took a 1% fee based on ongoings. And when you buy into a business and the share market, falls like that and you still have to do the same amount of work, we revisited the model. So it actually forced us to look at the model and go to flat dollar monthly fees with clients and put them on service packages. So that was in 2008. And
So you made that decision as a business decision, not because, you were forced to by the government or anything like that. Like it was you watched your revenues probably drop 50% like we did here in the US, and you're still doing the same amount of work. So you moved from a 1% AUM to what? Like kind of what was the fee structure then that you were using?
Well, we looked at what services we provided for clients. So at the time they were the retired clients, what services we provided. So we did, how many times they came in a year was one. Did they want phone support? Do they want us to help them with, Centrelink? So Centrelink here is like our age pension. Do they want us to help with Centrelink and talk to Centrelink for them? So we looked at, do they want estate planning advice? So we looked at all the areas that we gave advice for ongoing. And then we said, right, well, if you only want us to see us once a year and you don't want a lot of help, that's only going to be, $100 a month. If you want a lot of help, that might be $4 or $5, $1,000 a month. So we had 3 different packages that we went to with them. And that sort of, at the GFC forced us to go early. Now the government's made it mandatory. So a couple of years ago now, you have to justify, so you have to have a service package in place with a client, say the services that you're going to deliver to the client, and then each year you have to do a fee disclosure statement which says whether you've delivered those services, yes or no, and what they've charged. So every year you're needing to give that to the client. Then every 2 years you need them to sign that they're still happy with it. And if they don't sign and get it back to you within 30 days or so, you have to turn the fee off. And so that's a new thing. And so it's now compulsory. Back then, so you have to sort of say what you're doing for the fee. You can't just have a fee and do nothing. You have to say what you do for the fee, show the client each year what you're doing for that fee, and then get them to recommit at least every 2 years.
So I'm not sure if you realize just how mind-blowing what you just said is here in the US, because this is the world you live in. And everything that you just said is like so far beyond the way that we operate. So let me take a step back and just be sure that listeners understand. So let me repeat what you just said and you can tell me what you think. So
translate.
And I do want to circle back to sort of your fee structure that you started with. But what you're saying is now not only can you not charge commissions, so when did that happen when kind of commissions were banned?
Commissions on investment products were banned years ago. So that would be,
okay.
Yeah, so I think it was 2008 it might be. And they were banned years ago. Now at the moment we're about to step into the world where insurance commission, it's very much on the agenda. They want to take away or reduce insurance commission. So that's something that's being spoken about for the last year or two. They're getting a lot of pushback on people with insurance, that people won't pay to get insurance done. The only way they can do it is through commission. So
Of course, all the same things the investment folks said whenever they were trying to ban it on investments, I'm assuming. So are you still allowed to charge an assets under management fee, like a percentage, or is that done?
You can.
Okay.
And that's probably the model that's most common here, is that advisors charge a 1% fee. But you need to disclose that obviously every year. You need to disclose the fee that you've got paid, and you need to say what you've done for those services.
So basically what Australia did, it sounds like, starting in 2008 and kind of continuing with insurance commissions, is forced transparency. So you're now required to say, well, one, you can't even charge commissions at all on investment products, but you have to pick your fee model. So it can be assets under management, it can be a monthly fee, whatever, but you have to outline all the various services that you have and that you're going to provide that client. They have to agree to it. You have to reaffirm that every single year, and they literally have to sign a document every 2 years basically a fee disclosure saying that, I agree to continue being charged this. And if they don't, you have to end that client relationship until you can talk them into signing later on down the road, it sounds like.
You've got it in one, correct. So
oh man,
we've taken the view to get them to sign every 12 months. We just think that that's best practice. So when we give them you don't have to, it's every 2 years. And yeah, it's certainly not without its challenges in terms of you've got a client that's overseas, so it's how are you going to make sure, they're on holiday somewhere that they can't get reception. So it's certainly, from an administration point of view, it's not without its challenges. And so, but I think it has definitely forced us to look at the value that we're delivering to clients and making sure we're keeping delivering value.
So when you, back in 2008, made this shift to a monthly fee, you said, anywhere from $100 to $300-$400, even $1,000 a month. Did that include the asset management service? Was that comprehensive planning and asset management, or do you consider those separate services and you charge separately for them?
For us, we consider them the same.
Okay.
So for a lot of other advisors, they're different. You'd have a percentage funds under management, and then you'd have a monthly fee for the other stuff for investing, for the rest of the stuff that's not investing. But we decided to combine the fee. Now, when we first did this in 2008, if people invested more, then we thought it was a greater risk. So their fees reflected that. So we sort of had a percentage-based fee, but we turned it into a dollar, like risk, 0.25% of their funds component of the monthly fee. So 0.25% was based on their funds under management. So if they had more funds under management, we would charge them more because it was greater risk. However, a couple of years ago, we looked at that and we thought, well, we're still doing the same amount of work. And so we think it should be the same. So regardless now whether someone's invested, over $1 million with us, or, they've got 50,000 or 5,000 or none. We've got, several clients that we don't manage any money for. It's the same fee.
So it's reassessed each year just based on kind of overall complexity, what services they're using, that sort of thing. And then you just kind of divvy that out to a monthly fee. Correct. All right. So nice to know you're 10 years ahead of us, or maybe 8 years, just in terms of the fact that most advisors are still baffled when we talk about charging a monthly subscription or moving away from assets under management. You made that move back in 2008, which now it sounds like it's becoming compulsory. So, well, first off, so the makeup of your firm, how many advisors do you have now? Because you said when you bought in, it was very retirement focused. So kind of what is the makeup now? Is that original owner still there?
So when I bought into that business, and then I exited that in 2013. So I knew I knew that I only wanted to work with people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. Whilst I totally loved my retirees, and I really, a lot of them were sweet and it was great conversations. But the problem was I couldn't change their outcome. When they came to me with an amount of money, and I knew they were going to run out of money in their 70s. And, for me, it was heartbreaking because I would hear them say, like a broken record, I wish we saw you years ago. Why didn't I see you years ago? And so I felt a bit powerless that I couldn't change their outcome. So I made a decision in 2013 to exit that partnership, and I was only going to work with people in their 20s, 30s, and 40s. And so I had rapid growth for 3 years, grew very quickly, and so I needed a really strong back office system and support. And so that's where I met my current business partner, Steve, and we merged into Experience Wealth because I was growing at quite a rapid rate and needed that back office support. So I made that decision in 2013 to sort of start again from scratch, which anyone that started a business knows that's not without its challenges, starting from scratch.
Of course.
And with a model that no one else had really tested, no one else was really working in that 20s, 30s, 40s space, and not charging a commission. So I took the view in 2013 that I wouldn't charge a commission on the insurance. I could sort of see, the writing on the wall that at some point, this would change because it was inflating the insurance premiums for clients by 20, 30%. So for me, I wanted to make sure clients could, not just take the insurances and stuff out, but make sure they could afford to keep it. If it's being inflated by 30%, it's hard for them to, keep it long term. And so, 2013 changed the model, worked with people in the 20s, 30s, and 40s, and only took fee for service on everything, including insurance.
Oh, I love it. So I started mine in August of 12. So I feel like you and I were doing the same thing on opposite sides of the globe, but with different challenges in the sense that, and maybe this wasn't a challenge for you, but my understanding is when Australia moved to this kind of no commission, it it was a pretty quick transition, and it forced, I don't say it forced, it caused a lot of people, my understanding is a lot of advisors out of the business just because they didn't know how to explain the value of their service beyond, basically just we do investment management. I mean, they weren't able to really describe their services in a way that met the criteria for that fee disclosure. So have y'all seen a big turnover of advisors, or was that just a big, hoopla and ultimately didn't end up happening and everyone just sort of hung around?
Yeah, I've definitely heard it, but I haven't seen it. So, I've heard it anecdotally that it should be happening, but I don't know if I've actually seen it happen.
Fair enough.
The older advisors, and I shouldn't say that because now I'm older too, the older advisors really struggled with those fee discussions. And so much so that the partnership I was in at the time, the guy that was there from the beginning, he would actually get me to do the fee discussions because he, would just hand that bit of the meeting to me to do because he just, was uncomfortable with it. And I think if you really value yourself and what you do, you don't have a problem disclosing the fee. So,
sure.
And, I know how much value we give, so it's never been an issue for me.
And I really like the way you framed the discussion around kind of working with younger clients. So constantly, whenever I'm at conferences, I get this same question with this very perplexed look, and they say, what do you do for young people in terms of planning? And I know what they're asking, and it's that, we do all this stuff for our older, wealthier clients that, young people don't need. And I always joke that, what do you do for old people? And I like the way you framed it because you're much nicer than I am. And that is that ultimately when clients come to you with a pot of money, if they're in their 60s, they're kind of done. And it's not to say that you can't provide value. We obviously provide value, but there are a lot of things you cannot do when you're working with older clients that you can do because you can really reshape the direction that a client is taking, not just in terms of helping them save more money or paying down debt. All of those things are good, but even career discussions, being sure that a client, if they have a passion that we can help them pursue it instead of just getting caught in, kind of the corporate rat race and ending up in a long-term career that they didn't really want to be in. Like we really get to have those discussions when they're having babies and, buying houses and all of these like huge life transitions that just don't happen when you're in your 60s. So I like the way you framed that.
Correct. We help them ensure that they don't have regret. And, on the other end, when you're at 65 and you've been doing the same job, maybe, here would be the coal mines for forever. You've hated your job, but you've done it because of the money. You could live with regret. And so I feel very, very blessed with the job that, the role in people's lives that we get to play. I had this week, I had a client that I've worked with for a couple of years. They came to us with quite a bit of credit card debt. And when they came to us with credit card debt, they were earning, fairly good money, but they just had not been able to save. And this year, working with them a couple of years, they, bought their first house. And so to be able to go to their house, I don't usually normally do home visits, but to go to their house because I was excited as them, when they'd been in for a couple of weeks was just, it was lovely to be able to help with that.
That's awesome.
And yet the career change things, absolutely career change. I've got a lot of clients where I am that work in the coal mines. They hate their job. They hate the 12-hour shifts. They hate the dust. And so I've got a couple at the moment that we're working on so they can, pay off their mortgage in under 10 years so they can get out early and retrain. And so, being part of that, helping people, with their career change and have a job that they love. There's so many other things that go into, what we do. Like this year, I've helped someone to negotiate a pay rise, especially females. They really struggle with what to say when they're going for a job and to sort of negotiate their value and what they should be worth. And so, I've had those sort of discussions. Now, that's not financial planning. That's more, emotional support and showing someone their value. So there's so many things that go into it when you work with someone much younger. I think my youngest client's 20 she was. That's the one that's just bought the house. So yeah.
That's incredible. But just having that conversation with your female client and helping her negotiate $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 more this year, that has long-term effects because every year from here on out, the base is higher. So therefore, whenever she gets a 3 or 5% raise or is negotiating for a next higher salary, she has a higher base. I mean, that's probably you have paid for your fees for lifetime in the sense that you have helped her make so much more money now over the course of her life. So I'm assuming, not to get too off track, but I'm assuming Australia has the same issue we do in the U.S. where women are paid less than their male counterparts and research shows they don't like to ask for raises, whereas men tend to ask for raises. So is that a big area for you, or just kind of a one-off with that particular client?
No, it's definitely something I'm passionate about, and sort of something that I've spoken about in the Project 52 group. And it is a real issue here that women, from the first time they leave university with exactly the same qualifications, day one leaving university will earn less. And that gap over time gets bigger.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so no, it's definitely something I'm passionate about. And I do work with a lot of single female clients, and that is definitely something that, I help support them with. Because it's really just sometimes a confidence thing, and not having the confidence. They think they have to have everything perfect, where a bloke will think, oh, well, I've got a 7 out of 10, that's pretty good. They think they have to get everything perfect. And so, helping with that mindset stuff around that is definitely, I think, an important part of my role.
Fair enough. So you started your firm in 2013, kind of with this new model. Did you know other planners that were your age that were starting businesses to do this type of work, or were you really on your own when you first started out?
No, just on my own. The partnership exit, I don't know if anyone's sort of like a divorce, really going through a partnership exit that I went through. So, and I think at the time I just thought I need to leave that partnership, and I wanted to work with people that were younger. And so, yeah, really started with no plan, which is very not like me. And I didn't know anyone else that had done it. And in Australia, it's quite expensive to become a financial advisor. So my costs, before rent and before putting team members on or anything like that, just for the license fee were, 20, 25 grand a year. And so...
Oh my gosh. Those are like the legal fees?
No. Yeah, that's to have your license so that you can be, under someone else's license. That's not even self-licensed.
Oh, so, man.
Yeah, so you're looking at a couple of grand a month before you open the door. That's not rent. That's not, other things on top of that. So yeah, it is quite an expensive. So with a dealer group, they do give you, extra support. So you might get marketing support, you might get other things, but it's definitely a very high, and that's probably one of the differences I noticed between the US and here. There's so many, solo advisors operating, and I'm like, how are they all doing this? Because for us, we definitely had to eat into, a big chunk of our savings to do it for the first year or two. And it was because I think it's much cheaper to be a financial advisor there than what it is here.
Very much so. We don't have any of those types of costs. I mean, it's, a few $100 a year to register with a state, and that's about it. I mean, at most you're paying a compliance person $3,000, $4,000 to register you. But other than that, yeah, we just don't have those types of ongoing costs. That's crazy. Does that money support financial literacy, or y'all just get audited that often that they're using that to pay for it? I mean, any idea what the justification is for that level of cost to become a financial advisor?
I guess a big part of it would be audit and, the compliance side of it, because there is so much, and that's one of the downsides. There's definitely more pros than not with lots of regulation. One of the downsides is it costs more because you have more regulation, that you have more compliance that you need to do. And so as a result, financial planning costs more. Yeah, so it's definitely something that I'm aware of, and one of my big passions is to try and make financial planning, more affordable and scalable. So something in that group sort of model is what, I'd love to develop, like, have group fitness, have group financial planning as a way in Australia of making it more affordable for people to be able to get advice.
Well, especially if your hard costs are so high, it does make it harder because, I mean, you're running a business. You've got to make money. You've at least got to cover costs, but hopefully you're running a profitable business. It does make it harder to serve clients that can't afford, $200, $300 a month with that. So, okay, so when you got started, you were kind of monthly retainer, no assets under management. You were managing investments, just not doing kind of a percentage basis. Where did your initial wave of clients come from? Like, you said you were working with all retirees beforehand. So like, where did your clients come from? How did they find you, or how did you find them?
So that was the good thing about starting and having such a high cost. You got really good at marketing. You sort of had to get forced to be good at marketing. So for me, I've invested quite heavily in my education and personal development. So I work with a mentor, and I'm part of a group mastermind called K2. So a guy called Kerwin Ray. He's very, very good in terms of marketing. So I learn a lot about Facebook from him. And that for me has been where, a lot of my clients have come from. So I've got the little, Facebook community that I've developed since 2013, and that has triggered me doing speaking events. So I do the money masterclasses around the country, all up the East Coast at this stage. Those money masterclasses, get me in front of people. So does the Project 52 group. Yeah, so that, just out of necessity, you get good at marketing.
Yeah.
So, and then once you've got those few clients, they're so happy, they tell other people anyway. So referrals, and we would encourage referrals. I would ask for an each review for a referral. And so, that referrals and also the Facebook will help to grow my business, rapidly. And that's why I was having such growth. I think we was signing, at one stage, up to 2 clients a week. And so for us, that's quite a bit of work involved. Yeah, and so that's why the need for a really strong back office came in as well.
Good gracious! Most of our firms are, an established firm is happy if they get 1 new client a month. A newer firm is happy with 2 a month, but 2 a week is that's just absurd level of client flow and marketing. That's amazing.
Yeah, but it shows me that there's a need for the advice, because nobody else was doing it. And the other thing that we did is we went virtual, so it meant that I could help clients all over the country. So most financial advisors just do their postcode, and I was like, I think it was, and that's probably one of the things, because I follow the US financial advisors and what they were doing. Well, the lady Sophia from XY Planning, I saw what she was doing, that she was doing these online ones. I'm like, why can't I do online? And so that really helped to open up the clients who I could, help as well. And so seeing her do that a couple of years ago, I'm like, well, we could do that. I could do that. And so I started to do that, and I think that also helped. I didn't just have to have the people in my town. I could see everyone in Australia. Now, for most financial advisors, that would be very, I got pushback saying clients have to see you face to face. They're not going to see you on the computer, and so just ignored that and did it. And I think that helped as well.
That sounds like what we have done. It's just ignore all the people who say it can't be done and go find out if it actually can be. Because if you need an advisor face to face, there are plenty of those to go meet with. But if you need an advisor that meets with you virtually because of your family situation, or there's just nobody nearby or whatnot, how many of them are there? And it sounds like for you, not a lot, which it's always nice whenever there's not a lot of competition, vying for some of these clients.
Yeah, and I think clients like it too, because we record the meeting online and then they've got it as their notes to go back over. And so, for them, it reduces our compliance because that's our file note. It's good for them because they've got a record of the conversation. And we've had clients say, I've rewatched it. So, it actually saves, everyone time because they don't have to drive and everything. And, so that definitely helped with the expansion of the online, and it meant that we could help, see more people.
So you've mentioned Project 52. What is that?
Project 52 is our Facebook community. So that's our Facebook group. It started with the idea of, so I'm always about, sort of getting rich slowly is what we work with clients on. So the Project 52 challenge started with, at the start of the financial year, starting with saving $1, 52 weeks of the year. So starting with $1, then $2, all the way down to the last week of December, $52. And so it started with that, and then people were saying, we want to get reminders about this. We want to, and so, we don't really look at our emails. So then we developed the group around to support people to do the challenge. And then it's just turned into a little community. There's only about 500 or so of us in there, but we support each other. So if someone has a question, they post it in the group. So, in Australia at the moment, there's lots of changes happening to maternity leave and what the government's going to provide. That's been a massive topic of conversation in the group. So it started as a little dollar challenge, and it's sort of grown into, a community of people in their 20s, 30s and 40s wanting to talk about financial nerdy stuff. So we're continuing to grow and improve that group. And next week, actually, we're starting, and this is one of the ideas that I got from one of the XY sessions, actually. I can't remember what the lady was, who she was, but when I was in her session, she talked about a financial book club that she did. And I'm like, we could do a financial book club, and we could make it in the Facebook group. So that was one of the ideas that came off XY, and we're implementing and going live with that next week. So got the people in there excited about the financial book club starting next week, which we're going to be doing via Facebook Live inside the Facebook Project 52 group.
Oh man, this is awesome. So, okay, you're like so into this that again, I don't know that you realize just how different this really is, even in the US. So, okay, so you have Project 52, which you started or your company started. Is that correct?
Yeah, I started in 2013, so that's a Project 52 group. And again, it's part of and that's why I'm a big fan of, education is I worked with this guy, Kerwin, and the K2 community, and I saw people, one of the ladies that I know, she had a Facebook group and was growing a personal training business online. So I looked at what she was doing and went, well, personal training, and financial coaching is the same, financial planning is the same thing. It's just that one's about health and one's about money. So I sort of looked at what people were doing in the fitness industry because they were doing it really well. They were doing it online. They were doing it in groups. They were doing it, in a Facebook group, and sort of have replicated some of that.
That's so awesome. Okay, so this group then has led, it sounds like, to speaking engagements for you to kind of go around and speak to groups of some of the actual members of the Facebook group, which then, again, has led to clients. So it sounds like it's been a great way to educate as well as to kind of feed clients that are ideal clients into the actual firm while still helping a lot of people at once.
Correct. I love that group. I spend quite a bit of time in there. I love that community management role of what we get to do. They've got great questions and they don't know where to go for help. So, I spent quite a bit of time in that group. And when I was over there and I saw, I think it was Tiffany at FinCon speak, the budgetista, I saw some of her stuff she was doing. I was like, like my little group of 500 and she's got like 200,000. So I think we have a while to go. But yeah, that Facebook group is definitely something I'm, continuing and wanting to ramp up because it's your community. It's your people, and so they become your biggest supporters and your biggest advocates. Yeah, so I think for me that those Facebook groups is definitely how we've helped build the business and raised our profile, and it's something I do for free. I'll be in there. I wake up, the first thing I do is want to get in the Facebook group and post something, start a discussion, and it's something I do even if I wasn't, even if I won the lotto tomorrow, I would still do that. The Facebook group, I just love it. I love doing that stuff.
Yeah, we don't see a lot of social media success yet. I don't think we have a lot of folks that are focusing on that area. Like I said, in the FinCon world of bloggers and community building, they are better at it than I think advisors are, mainly just because most advisors don't have a service model that can work with those folks whenever they need help because they're still charging high assets under management. You've got to have a big pot of money. They don't have the monthly fee structure to be able to work with some of these younger folks that would be a part of this Facebook group.
Yeah, right. And so that's the thing that we probably concentrate on heavily is cash flow management, because if we focus on that side, and so the group's about budgeting and cash flow management, and that's a large part of what we charge our monthly fees for is that cash flow management. And I suppose if you don't have that in place, then it would be hard to charge. So one of the things that we do is actually track their savings compared to their peer group. So we track, how our single client, say, pick on someone, Jenny, how's Jenny's savings compared to the average single person? So because we're continuing to track their savings and their progress, they're more likely to keep wanting to pay that, see the value in paying the monthly fee.
Okay, so do you have software that pulls that data, or are you just kind of doing that manually where you're comparing to the average single, do you have a way of automating that comparison, or is it pretty manual?
Yeah, no, at the moment we use that accounting software Xero. I think you guys have Xero in the States.
Yep.
And we like that because you can pull the data out. So we manually have to get it out of that data and look at the data in Excel to know how the benchmarks work, how the averages. But that way we can say the average client that we work with spends, average family spends 8% of their wage on groceries and you guys spent 20%. So it lets us have those sort of discussions because we know how they're going towards the average.
So you actually have your clients using Xero, which we have Xero. I think QuickBooks Online is a more popular choice, but this is like personal financial budgeting, because usually Xero would be used in a business here, I feel like. But you actually have your clients using that to track their cash flow and spending, and then you're able to pull out that data and then do some aggregated, like I said, you spend 20%, the average is 8%. We need to pull that down among your clients.
Yeah, exactly. So for me, how I've thought about it is, a household is like a business. So there's a balance sheet, there's a profit and loss. And so we've taken that view, which is why we like the accounting software, because that's exactly what a house is, a business. So for us, we actually give them a profit and loss. We teach our clients how to read a profit and loss. We tell them profit is just savings. And so Yeah, we have a system in place where that's why I like Xero, because it does a lot of the reconciliation for them. It knows that groceries, Woolworths is groceries, it knows that Caltex is petrol. It does a lot of reconciliation. So there's very little work the clients actually have to do. It's just if they got cash out, or as an example, that they would need to, write in the comments what it was, and then we reconcile it for them. So yeah, and I guess that lets us have those discussions. So every week we give them a bit of a snapshot on how they're tracking. So they pick the 5 categories they think they might blow things on. And we, it could be food, it could be entertainment, and they get feedback every week on how they're tracking. So a Friday little snapshot. And so then that just keeps them conscious of what they're spending, so they're thinking about it. And then on a monthly basis, they get that full profit and loss. So they get, they compare to how they thought they were going to go to their budget. And then when we have our quarterly catch-ups with them, that's when we go into more detail, where we look at the year-to-date stuff, and we're also comparing them to our average clients' savings as well as their budget.
So again, is that automated at all, or you're manually pulling that data and sending out those reports on a weekly, monthly, quarterly basis?
The weekly ones are manual. The monthly ones and the quarterly ones are much more automated. You have to pull the report and you have to send it, though. So you have to download the report and send it. Yeah, we are definitely looking at some solutions for next year to make it a lot less manual and labour intensive, because the weekly ones definitely are labour intensive. But, our clients, the average Australian last year saved 8%. Our clients saved over 20%.
Whoa.
And it's because of that conscious. They're thinking about it more. They can see it every week. And so, we are definitely conscious of the labour intensiveness of it and looking for other solutions, but our clients are just smashing the averages, so we know it's working. That's
fantastic. And so would you say, or would you agree with the statement that cash flow really sits at the core of your planning process?
Absolutely.
That's really where everything starts from. See, and when you work with older clients, it doesn't really start with cash flow, because a lot of them have enough money that cash flow isn't as important, right? Like we start at retirement planning as the core, or insurance if you're an insurance salesman, or investment management. That's really the core, and everything works around that. Whereas when you are working with younger clients, cash flow is king, right? I mean, that's where everything flows from. And so, it sounds like you're making a huge difference in your clients' lives by helping them save more, and they're paying your fees. So, they're way ahead, despite the fact that they have to hire a financial planner. It's absolutely worth the money.
Correct. And that's one of the reasons why we spend that time tracking it, is to show them how much better off they are because of it. And so, for us, knowing your numbers is crucial. I can't understand how another advisor who doesn't understand their numbers can answer their questions. When a client comes and says, "Can I afford to?" I can answer that decision with absolute confidence because I understand their numbers. If I didn't know their cost of living, we'd be making a guess. And so for me, understanding their numbers makes me a much, much better financial advisor. So when a client comes back and says, the house is going to cost us an extra $100,000 to what we thought, can I afford it? I can pull the data and go, if you drop your entertainment by $50 a week, then yes, you can. So it just makes financial planning much easier if you understand the numbers, and money management is the pinnacle for us of that.
So what is the makeup of your firm? How many advisors do you have now, and I guess your operations, because you said you have kind of brought in operations to help on that end. Like, what does the actual firm profile look like now?
So we have 4 of us. So there's 3 of us that are financial advisors, and we have another sort of person that helps with implementation and also does our, statements of advice as well. So there's 4 of us. So we've actually broken it up, and we have specialty areas for advice. So I work with all our clients that are single and that don't have children yet. And then we've got Chris and Steve. Chris works with our children, people that are young children or planning to have a family. So all the daycare issues, he understands the sleep deprivation. And then Steve deals with our clients with older children. So there's the 3. We've broken it up like that because I do a lot of the, marketing front of the business sort of stuff, doing the money masterclasses and things like that. And so people see me, but obviously I can't take on everyone. So we've broken it up and have those sort of specialties. I think it's a, good idea, because then you become an expert in that sort of area.
So if a single female client comes to you, they're working with you, and then they get married and they start having conversations about having children, do they move to the other advisor?
No, this is still fairly new. We've only started this year, so it's still fairly new, but we assume that they would stay with the advisor.
Okay.
So, that's
makes
sort
sense.
of the role that we've had is, but yeah, it's still fairly new for us, that splitting it up like that. But it seems to be working.
So how many clients is your firm currently working with now?
I think we have just under 100 across us. So
that's incredible.
We see them every quarter. So we broke it up. We have 30-ish each. We see them basically every quarter, and when we see them, a lot of the times now, we've started to give them the choice of whether they want a pre-recorded video. So we do a pre-recorded, like our clients are super time poor, some of them, and they can't get in, 4 times a year. We do a pre-recorded video of how we think we're going. We send it to them and they can watch it in their own time.
Oh, that's awesome. So instead of coming in for a live meeting, you could just send them kind of a recording of you telling them what you were going to tell them in the meeting. You don't get that back and forth, but they at least get an update.
Correct. Yeah, like a highlights reel of how they've gone over the last quarter.
Time poor. I like that phrase. I've never heard time poor before, but that's a great way to explain young clients that have kids and have jobs. And like I said, if you're working with folks that work 12-hour shifts in the coal mine, it's not exciting to take a half day to come down to the financial planner's office and chat.
That's right. So yeah, that's the video initiative is definitely and it's definitely a way that we are definitely a lean business. When you provide services to younger clients, you're looking at ways that you can automate stuff, ways that you can do stuff better. So that has cut our meeting times down as well. So we give them a choice of whether they want to come in face to face, whether they want to do a virtual meeting, or whether they want a pre-recorded meeting. So it's helped get us some time back as well.
What would you, just off the top of your head, what would you guess the percentages of folks that want to come in for their quarterly meeting versus virtual versus, kind of a pre-recorded video?
I think it's probably half now. At the moment, with the pre-recorded stuff still fairly new, I'd say probably 10% or so. The large majority, and the rest of it is split pretty evenly between virtual and so online versus face-to-face. Even the clients that could come in, they just find, with parking and stuff, it would be easier if we could just have it on the computer. And so, even if they're local now, they're seeming to taking up that virtual meeting offering.
So I'm assuming all of the things that you're talking about blow the minds of advisors that have been around a while down there, right? Like, this is not is this normal? Are all these pieces just normal in your neck of the woods, or is this kind of groundbreaking and kind of this shift for the industry in Australia?
I would say it's a shift for the industry, and it would be one of the reasons why this year I was lucky enough to receive the Independent Financial Advisor Excellence Award. So that's an award that they pick one person in Australia to get.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And so that to me was because of some of the innovative stuff that we've been able to do. So working with younger clients forces you to get lean in your thinking. It forces you to think outside the box, forces you to use technology well, and so for those reasons, the Facebook group, the fact that I Snapchat some of our clients, that sort of stuff, I think put me apart from all of the other financial advisors, and was definitely one of the contributing reasons why I won that Independent Financial Advisor Excellence Award this year.
That's huge, and it really puts your model on the map as, hey, this is legitimate. I had said this in the opening keynote at XYPN 16, but at first people kind of view this as a toy, right? Oh, that's cute that they're doing that, but that'll never really affect anything. And honestly, awards like that just give validation to the fact that what you're doing does matter, and it is going to change things. And honestly, those older advisors are probably trying to figure out, they're probably scrambling a little bit right now, trying to figure out oh my gosh, we thought just moving to fee only and away from commissions was a big deal. What happens when our clients don't want to come into the office? What happens when they want to pay us a monthly fee? What happens when they ask us cash flow questions instead of just retirement questions? It's a major shift.
Yeah, definitely. And that's probably one of the things I've noticed between what American financial advisors and here do. You guys use technology really well from what I could see. And so that's probably my biggest takeaway from the XY conference is that you guys use technology really well. And so we're trying to integrate that here as much as we can. And so, I think that does certainly scare some of the other advisors that have been, around a while. The idea that, they're not on Facebook and now they have to be in a Facebook group and they don't understand it and they think it's wasting time. And, Snapchat scares them even more. They don't understand, why would you only want to watch something for, a couple of seconds? That's ridiculous. And so, trying to explain, that to some of the other advisors has been fun. But you do have some of them that are willing to adapt. There's definitely ones out there that are willing to adapt, willing to learn. And I think that was one of the things, in my old partnership was those guys were good at technology. And so, technology and that future focusing, I think is extremely important. You do have some of the older advisors that are willing to do that, but the idea of them being on Snapchat or something really does scare them.
Which is funny. We don't even think about just like little laws. Like we have to archive all communication, so we can't be on Snapchat because you literally have to store the snap, which you cannot do because they don't have an API to get that data. So like we can't be on Snapchat. We can do most of the things. And it's just funny the differences. But you said you're focusing on technology. Is it a struggle in Australia to get good technology? I mean, because we do struggle here, and we've got 400,000 advisors. I don't know how many advisors you have, but like
20,000 we have here.
Yeah, so it's like a super small marketplace to build tech for. Like, are y'all struggling to get good tech and get people to build it? I figured.
And the ones that we do have, it's expensive.
Yeah.
So, when I saw some of the stuff that you guys, I think it was Wealthbox or some of the tools that you guys have over there, Snappy Kraken that's been developed, and I think that one, that sort of stuff, I was like, and some of the calculators and stuff that you have, if we had that here, and that's the calculators that I love about you could show the clients. It was, show rather than telling them. With a lot of our stuff, you had to do it offline because it's so slow, it's so involved. You can't have those sort of show conversations. You have to tell them because you had to do the projection beforehand. So some of the stuff that you have, those calculators that you can use live with them, I think are fantastic. So we have that in the older space here. So for retirees, clients want to know how long my money will last. We can do that live. There's not a lot of stuff, what if I buy a car, then what happens? What if I do this, then what happens? You can have that conversation live with a client in the retired space. They have not developed those tools for younger clients. So if a client says, can I afford to, have 12 months maternity leave? Can I afford to, go buy this house? It's a much more manual. We sort of develop tools in Excel to be able to do it. There's not really a quick, model that, that's been built for that.
I complain a lot about our technology and financial planning here in the U.S. just because they're not as far along as some other industries, but probably take a little bit for granted the fact that, especially when it comes to financial planning, the U.S. gets the technology dollars first just because we have so many planners to buy it. I understand scale with a business when you're only selling to 20,000 advisors, and the most of which don't care about being able to model buying a car.
Correct.
But you can't just take planning software and make it Australia friendly because y'all are a completely different set of rules, regulations, tax code. I mean, it's an overhaul. So what we need is to combine U.S. technology with and bring your laws and regulations around being a fiduciary and fee only into the U.S., and then we'll all be happy.
Yeah. Superpower.
No, and it's, we're talking a lot. I don't know if y'all are laughing about this, that, we're talking Department of Labor ruling where suddenly you have to be a fiduciary on any retirement account, not all accounts and not when you do planning necessarily, but definitely on retirement accounts. So it's kind of funny that this is a huge shift for us, but y'all have already been through this and y'all are fine. The industry's continuing. You still have advisors, and now you're going to do the same on insurance, which you mentioned something about this, and I'm curious, can you transact insurance in Australia without taking a commission?
Yes, and that's what I've done. So 3 years ago, I just stopped taking insurance commission. So it actually makes the premium 20 to 30% cheaper for the client for the life of the policy. And so because it's like that, I wanted to rebate that and charge a flat dollar fee. And so I started doing that 3 years ago, had no pushbacks from clients on it. And because the clients I work with, the large majority, we work with them for the long term on their journey. And so I don't want just them to have insurance. I want them to be able to afford to keep it. And if it's inflated by 30% every year, then, it makes it more expensive for them and they're less likely to keep it. But the reason why that was the reason why I did it, but the reason why they're talking about reducing or banning it here is they had advisors at the moment, you could get up to 130% of the premium as a commission. So what that meant, it was some advisors were churning clients moving from one insurance policy to another just so they could get paid again. And so that's one of the reasons why they want to ban it here is for that reason. It's not so much, I haven't heard too much about the affordability aspect. I've heard it from the, stop advisors churning clients.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, in the U.S., they do the same thing, and they occasionally get a very small $5,000 or $10,000 fine, and you get to move on. It's just amazing to me that your government is actually having real discussions around how to do this. So So you said you can transact insurance without taking commission, and then you said a fee rebate. So do you just charge a monthly fee, or what is the fee rebate that you were mentioning?
So yeah, we rebate that 30%. So it just means it's cheaper. So rather than $100 a month, it might be $70 a month is what they get charged, and we just charge them a set monthly fee. Definitely a risk though. Like if the client is no longer a client and they stop paying us our monthly fee because they don't want to be in that service package anymore, we don't get a commission on their insurance continuing. And so that is definitely something that it's a risk for our model and a risk for our business factor. For our business is that we don't have a trail commission that's going to kick on if the client doesn't stay around. And so that's definitely something we're very conscious of, and something we factor into maybe clients. I'm not naive to think that every single client's going to be with us forever. So there definitely has to be factored into our model a percentage that aren't going to stay around. And so I think as long as we factor that in, then it makes it a viable model.
So I'll admit I'm a little confused, and it's probably just because of terminology, but if I don't ask you, then I'll get questions about it from listeners. So, okay, so they buy an insurance policy. You can reduce the fee by up to 30% by cutting off the commission. But then you're saying there's a fee rebate. So there's a 30% savings. Is it just reduced insurance premium?
It just reduces the insurance commission.
Okay. So you're not literally getting money that then goes back that you're crediting against the client. It's just sold without a commission. You don't get paid to sell that product.
No. So if a client comes to us with insurance already set up, we actually can't turn off the commission. That's, frustrating to us. If the insurance policy is already set up, we can't turn it off. But when we actually get paid it, and then we have to give it back to the client. And so
Gotcha.
it's a bit manual, but if we're doing it from scratch, they just get charged less. There's no rebate or anything like that. They just get charged less.
Fascinating, because that is, and you and I had chatted a little bit about this at XYPN 16, so that makes more sense. So we cannot do any of what you just said. I think you can do fee offset in the U.S. with commissions, but I don't think our regulations allow us to do fee rebates. So I can't say I'll sell you this life insurance policy and then give you your commission back in cash. That is not allowed by the insurance regulators. I think you can do some sort of fee offset, but you can't call yourself fee only according to the CFP board. That's not something that's regulated. That's just the board. We can't call ourselves fee only if we can accept a commission, even if we completely rebate it, or a lot of advisors, because of some association stuff that happened, they were donating all of those trails. Like you were mentioning, somebody comes in with a policy or they have a really old one. They were donating that trail to charity and not keeping any of it. They still can't call themselves fee only. So we have a real problem, because the flip side being we can't transact insurance without a commission because those products really don't exist right now.
Right. So do you do insurance? I know I think you've sold your business now, but when you worked with younger clients, did you refer out the insurance work then?
Yeah. So at our conference, you saw Low Load Insurance Services. So I teamed up with them. And so, they would come to me. I would get paid for the advice and to do the analysis of the product and say, you need a 30-year term life insurance policy for $1 million. And then I would connect them with Low Load, and they would go to Low Load Insurance Services to actually get the product. And then Low Load earns a commission because that's the only way you get paid to do insurance. We separated advice and the actual product, which I'm okay with just because I'm not an insurance expert. So the actual scheduling for blood draw for a medical exam, I'm happy for Low Load to take that off our plate. But they're still having to pay for advice and the product itself. So it is more expensive than just getting it online or whatever that only comes with the commission. So it's a weird system that we're kind of hijacking right now until we get some regulation that ultimately makes that easier.
Right. No. Okay. Well, that's interesting. That makes more sense now how that works. I was a bit confused about how it worked, but you're getting somewhere.
Yeah. We have to outsource all of it. So somebody is going to earn the commission. We just try to send it to folks that's all they do is LLIS only works with the clients of fee only advisors. So that's just their niche. They're not competing with us. So they've created a successful business for the last 30 years doing this because we, as fee only advisors, can't transact insurance. So, because I remember talking to an advisor in New Zealand, and he said he had a slider. I don't know if you had literally a commission slider. I want 100% of the commission, 90%, 80%, all the way down to 0%, which is just crazy because we have none of that.
Yeah, same. So you can pick the commission structure. So you might take 80% of the premium and then you get 20% each year. Or you could do a level premium where you just don't get anything up front, you get 30% each year. So you can definitely play around with the commission structure and how much, you sort of you can also play it down where you rebate all of it or rebate some. So yeah, it's definitely flexible like that. So yeah.
That's incredible. Yeah, here it's like you get 1 year's commission for the first year premium, and that's it. Take it or leave it. I mean, well, you can't leave it; you have to take it.
Yeah.
So that's just the model.
So nothing ongoing for you guys. Nothing ongoing.
Some of them do ongoing, depending on the product. So I admittedly don't know a lot about it, just because I've never sold insurance. But I know some of the products like annuities and whole life insurance pay a higher percentage on an ongoing basis versus like term life, which has that bigger upfront commission. But that's one of the issues we're running into, and no one in the U.S. is talking about insurance reform. Everything is about kind of fiduciary inside of investment accounts. No one is really talking about the fact that, like, yeah, you have massive incentives to push whole life policies versus term because you get paid so much more, and then you kind of create an annuity for yourself because it's this ongoing fee. So they do get paid on an ongoing basis, but not nearly as much as they do in the first year, which encourages that, we call it churn, kind of encourages that churning from policy to policy because, you might as well. That's how you get paid. So,
yeah.
So are you involved with the Australian group, the XY Advisors? Is that something you're involved in at all?
No, I know those guys. I met them through the States and a couple of the guys that are in there, Clayton and a few of the guys. But no, we're not involved with them.
Okay. Well, if Clayton's listening, I'll have to bring him on the show at some point because I know they have sort of I thought it was a comparison or a comparable company to XYPN Network, but it's actually, for our listeners' comparison, it's more like Next Gen, which is kind of a collection of young advisors talking about how do we move the profession forward. So Australia, it's called XY Advisors. That's similar to our FPA Next Gen. Way too many acronyms in that sentence, but anyway.
Us advisors love a acronym, don't we? It's like another language. What are you talking about?
And you start throwing out acronyms. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about because like each country has their own set of unique acronyms for the way you do business. So I guess as we're kind of starting to get to the end of our show, what's coming for you? So, I mean, what are you planning? You're scaling, you're growing, you're bringing on more advisors. Like, what do you want this business to be in 5-10 years? I mean, what do you see as the landscape for where you can go as a business owner?
So for me, and something that I'm really passionate about is that group model. So I guess for me, I think about financial planning, it's exactly like fitness. So you can have the do-it-yourself gym membership option, or you can have a personal trainer, or you can have the group training in the middle. And the same thing, I think, is possible in financial planning. You've got the robo advice, which is for the people that want to do it yourself. You've got the, personal financial advice, which is the one-on-one. I want to develop that middle ground, that group model. And I think there is a way that can happen. It's happened in other industries. It's happened with business coaching. It's happened with fitness. And so for me, that's something in 5 years' time I would love to have, is a way to do a group financial planning to make it more affordable and so that we can help more people.
If you crack that code, please come to the US and show us how to do it, because money is such a taboo topic. It's hard, from my experience, to get people in a group to talk about it, but that's not to say it's impossible. I definitely agree that there's a huge potential there to help more people, because you don't have to charge $200 a month when you've got 6 people in a group together. So
I think you would still, I've been playing around with the idea of my head. You would still have your own numbers and your stuff personal, but you could have the opportunity, for us, I would focus heavily on that cash flow and cash flow management side of it. But it would be an opportunity to talk about things like, for us, questions like HEX. Do I pay off my HEX, which is, our version of the loan for uni, all those other questions, which, it's so expensive for them to get advice one-on-one. And so for me, I think that's definitely something I'm passionate about, being able to help more people, being able to make advice affordable so that my generation has more choices.
I love it. And I do think the accountability of a group is huge. And that's what you're doing on a one-on-one basis now. But when you go into a group, hopefully one of the things that scales is that they can be each other's accountability coach, instead of just relying on you to do that. Because that's one of the core pieces, is that behavioral change and behavioral management, is that, it doesn't matter how much we help them if they make a really bad decision, buy a house they can't afford, blow money on a vacation they shouldn't have done, or, so many different things that they could do, sell their investments at the bottom of the market. That's going to severely damage their kind of long-term financial outlook. So that'll be awesome to see. I'll be interested to see how that works for you, because we have some advisors here that are trying similar things. We just had Kat on the podcast just a couple weeks ago. They're kind of doing the same thing inside of businesses, where they go in and do think they call them fiscal fitness clubs inside of businesses to pull employees together to do this. So, but financial planning is changing, and y'all have seen it, I think, a little more in the face because the government regulation has forced it. But we're behind, but slowly trailing. Like we're coming along as well to try to see what else. How do we bring this to non-rich people? How do we do this thing called financial planning for people that don't have $1 million? And it's awesome to see that y'all are fighting the good fight down in Australia like we are here. So last question for you, Adele, the question I always ask, if you could go back and give a younger Adele, maybe the Adele that was looking at starting your own business, if there's one piece of advice you could go back and give yourself, what do you think that piece of advice would be?
Ooh, good question. Well, if I could go back, what would I tell myself? When I was starting business in 2013, what would I tell myself?
Sure.
Not to worry that it'll all work out. So I think I spend a lot of mental energy worrying about whether I'd done the right thing and whether it was, was it going to be right? I think having that, lucky I've got a very supportive husband that said, yeah, that sounds great, just go crazy. So I think just, I've told myself that it will work out, and just that it doesn't have to be a rush. Like I think that's one of the things as business owners, we think, I have to get this done by then. And, it's a bit like my personality type. We have to get this done by then. Who said that? We put our own deadlines and stuff. You don't have to have everything perfect in the first 12 months. And so I would tell my younger self that it's progress, not perfection.
I love it. That is awesome advice. And so, Adele, thank you again for waking up early on a Saturday morning to come on the show with us and share your expertise. I really appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me.
It was really fun to chat through the similarities and differences that Adele is experiencing in Australia versus, the things that we're seeing here in the U.S. She is totally rocking it as she is focused on growing a firm that is built to serve younger clients. Who knows? Maybe Adele will be the start of XYPN Australia. Folio Dynamics is leading the evolution of the wealth management business with technology and advisory solutions that empower every advisor. Folio Dynamics just launched the concept of Fiborg, which covers those advisors who embrace technology automation the same way the cyborgs of science fiction did. That Fiborg concept means that advisors can automate those activities that don't generate revenue while maximizing the time they spend with clients. For more on Fiborg, on working with millennials, and on Folio Dynamics, visit foliodynamics.com/thought_leadership. Be sure to join our VIP community at XYPlanningnetwork.com/VIP to hang out with other XYPN Radio listeners, ask questions for future mailbag episodes with myself and Kitsis, and to finally find a community of like-minded financial advisors. Thanks so much for joining me today. We'll see you next time.
You're not alone, and you're not crazy. It's scary starting, building, and growing your own financial planning firm. And that's why we put together a free private community just for you, the Cutting Edge Financial Planner. Go to XYPlanningnetwork.com/VIP or text XYPN Radio to 33344 and join a network of thousands ready to change the lives of Gen X and Gen Y clients.